We tell ourselves failure is a teacher. Then we spend most of our energy making sure it can't teach us anything. Here's the lie we keep telling ourselves about failure: that it's just a detour, a pothole on the way to success we were always going to have anyway. So we patch it up, repeat a slogan about getting back on the horse, and keep moving. But if failure were really just a detour, we wouldn't keep ending up in the same place. Most of us don't actually fail forward. We fail, flinch, and keep going on the same script, just with a little bit more scar tissue. If you lived long enough to fail at something that actually mattered to you, a relationship, a project, a version of yourself that you were trying to become, then you already know this. The fail forward line starts to ring a little bit hollow. Not because failure can't teach you anything, but because most of the language that we use around it is actually designed to help you skip the lesson. There are two broad ways people relate to failure. The first is the achievement culture model. In this view, failure is mostly a setback, right? Something to correct quickly, spin optimistically, and then leverage into a comeback story. The goal is to get back on track as fast as possible, your track, the one that you were already on. The second is quieter, and it's closer to what actually happens inside thoughtful people. In this view, failure is not only a setback, it's part of the material of becoming who you actually are, not the obstacle to the path. Sometimes it is the path. These two models aren't just philosophically different, they produce different lives. The first teaches you resilience as performance. The second teaches you resilience as honesty. So here's a more honest frame. Failure is information. It's not a verdict on you. It's not a punishment. It's not a detour. It's information. Specifically, failure tends to reveal five things when you let it. It reveals assumptions, the quiet beliefs that you are operating on without knowing that you were. It reveals fears, the ones that you are outrunning by staying in motion. It reveals your blind spots, the parts of the situation that you couldn't see because you weren't ready to see them yet. It reveals your limits, not as a moral judgment, but as current reality, the honest gap between where you are and what you do. And it reveals your values, because what you feel when something falls apart is never random. Disappointment, relief, shame, clarity, each one is data about what you were really after underneath this stated goal. That's the specific information failure carries. Information doesn't help you unless you stay with it long enough to hear it. And most of us don't stay. We defend, we explain, we immediately start constructing a flattering version of the story. The market was bad. They weren't ready for me. I was too early. I just need better systems. Sometimes those things are even true. But notice how fast the explanation arrives. It's usually faster than the reflection that would have actually helped. Here's a pattern worth watching for in yourself. Someone keeps failing at a habit, the morning routine, the diet, the writing practice, and keeps rebuilding the system. New app, new schedule, new accountability partner. What they never ask is whether the goal was theirs to begin with. Sometimes a failed habit is quietly exposing a borrowed ambition. Or someone keeps getting passed over work. Each time they blame the manager, the politics, the timing. Any of those could be partly true. But if the same result keeps showing up, failure may be pointing at a capacity gap, a blind spot in how they come across, or a mismatch between the goal and who they actually are. Or someone keeps ending the same kind of relationship and narrating it the same way. The details change, the shape doesn't. It's not bad luck. That's information the person hasn't been willing to metabolize yet. Failure becomes useful the moment you stop defending against what it's trying to tell you. There's a distinction here I want to name slowly because it changes everything downstream. I failed is an identity claim. This failure showed me something true is an observation. The first collapses you into the outcome. The second lets the outcome teach you without becoming you. This is not a word game. It changes what you do next. If failure is a verdict, then your only options are denial or despair. If failure is material, raw information about who you are, what you want, where you are, and what you assumed, then you have something to work with. That's what self becoming actually looks like. Not a straight line from who you were to who you want to be, more like an ongoing conversation with reality, where failure is one of reality's more honest voices. It's worth mentioning carefully that research studying what's called post traumatic growth found something interesting. Under certain conditions, people who go through serious adversity sometimes develop deeper self knowledge, stronger relationships, and a clearer sense of what matters. But notice the qualifiers sometimes, under certain conditions. Suffering is not automatically meaningful. Pain is not automatically a teacher. Growth is not guaranteed. What seems to matter is whether the experience is engaged honestly instead of avoided, performed around, or collapsed into. That's the real skill. Not positivity, not grit for its own sake. The capacity to stay with difficulty long enough to learn from it without romanticizing it and without being crushed by it. So here's a question worth sitting with, not as a journal prompt from a productivity app, as an actual question. The last time something important to you didn't work, what did you do with it? Did you explain it, spin it, and keep moving? Or did you let it tell you something? If you've been skipping that step, you haven't failed too much. You failed without learning. That's the version of failure that wastes you. The other version, the one engaged honestly, is one of the most useful forces in a human life. You don't have to be grateful for it. You don't have to call it a gift. You just have to stop wasting it. Keep reading. There's more on the page about how self-knowledge becomes the compass for this kind of growth and why real development almost never happens in a straight line.